Imagine a prop plane so small that the pilot's feet sit underneath the engine oil sump, where the wingspan is shorter than most dining room tables and the entire aircraft weighs less than a motorcycle. These aren't toys, they're real functioning airplanes that real people actually climbed into and flew. But the smallest one ever built had a wingspan of just 5 feet 6 inches and survived only 3 flights before it was destroyed forever. So let's start from the bottom and work our way down to the absolute tiniest. Number 6. The Bede BD-5. This is where small gets ambition. Designed by Jim Bede in the early 1970s, the BD-5 was supposed to bring micro-aviation to the masses. The fuselage stretched just 12 feet long, with a rear-mounted pusher propeller and a cockpit that looked like someone shrunk a fighter jet in the wash. The original design called for a 70-horsepower Hearth piston engine, pushing the BD-5 to cruise speeds around 210 miles per hour. For something you could practically park in a single-car garage, that is moving. Bede sold over 5,000 kit deposits at just a couple $100 each, making it one of the fastest-selling aircraft kits in history. But here's where it gets complicated. Finding a reliable engine proved nearly impossible. The company went bankrupt in the mid-1970s, and most of those kits never got finished. The jet variant, the BD-5J, did earn fame though. It showed up in a James Bond film strapped to the opening sequence of Octopussy, and it still holds the record for the world's lightest jet at around 359 pounds. But the BD-5 was never about chasing the smallest title. It was about making small aviation practical. The aircraft we're heading toward next had very different priorities. Number 5. The Colomban Cri-Cri. Built by French aeronautical engineer Michel Colomban in the early 1970s, the Cri-Cri holds the title for the smallest twin-engine crewed aircraft in the world. And yes, twin-engine. 2 of them, each producing roughly 15 horsepower. That's about 30 horsepower combined, which sounds absurd until you realize the whole aircraft weighs only 172 pounds empty. The fuselage measures just under 13 feet long, with a wingspan of about 16 feet. It is made from aluminum sheet glued to foam, and the entire thing can be assembled or disassembled in about 5 minutes. Colomban named it after his daughter Christine, whose nickname was Cri-Cri, which also happens to be the French word for the sound a cricket makes. And that's oddly fitting, because the thing buzzes through the air like an insect that shouldn't be able to fly, but absolutely does. Cruise speed sits around 115 miles per hour. It is fully aerobatic, and if one engine quits, the aircraft just enters a gentle turn instead of a death spiral. Colomban sold several hundred sets of plans worldwide, and builders have been modifying them ever since. Someone even strapped 2 tiny jet engines to one. But despite its cleverness, the Cri-Cri was never the smallest single-pilot prop plane in the world. That title belongs to a family rivalry that started with a dare. Number 4. The Stits SA-2A Sky Baby. In 1952, a mechanic and World War II fighter pilot named Ray Stits built this aircraft at his home in Riverside, California, after another pilot dared him to create the world's smallest man-carrying airplane. The Sky Baby is a negative stagger biplane, meaning the lower wing sits ahead of the upper wing, and the whole aircraft spans just 7 feet 2 inches wingtip to wingtip, length 9 feet 10 inches. The Continental engine, modified with water injection, produced somewhere between 85 and 112 horsepower, depending on the source. And the cockpit layout is genuinely unsettling. The engine sits practically in the pilot's lap, and the rudder pedals are tucked underneath the oil sump toward the front of the cowling. Pilot Robert Starr flew the Sky Baby at air shows from April through November 1952, reportedly reaching a top speed around 185 miles per hour. After 25 hours of flight time, the aircraft was retired and eventually donated to the Smithsonian, where it now sits on display at the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center in Virginia. The Sky Baby held the record for the smallest airplane in the world for over 30 years. But the man who flew it, Robert Starr, was already thinking about something even smaller. And so was the builder's own son. Number 3. The Stits DS-1 Baby Bird. In 1980, Don Stits, Ray's son, decided to beat his father's record. Working weekends in his garage with his wife Lori and their 2 kids, he spent 5 years and about $5,000 building a tiny high-wing monoplane. The Baby Bird measured just 11 feet long, with a wingspan of only 6 feet 3 inches. Up front sat a lightweight German-made Herth engine, producing 55 horsepower, turning a ground-adjustable wooden propeller that was 44 inches long. Retired Navy pilot Harold Niemer handled the test flights, completing around 35 successful flights in 1984. Maximum speed topped out around 110 miles per hour. In 1984, Guinness recognized it as the world's smallest airplane. The Baby Bird now sits at the EAA AirVenture Museum in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. But here's the twist. Robert Starr, the same pilot who flew Ray Stitz's Sky Baby back in 1952, wasn't about to let the Stits family hold the record without a fight. Number 2. The Star Bumble Bee. Robert Starr had spent decades around the smallest aircraft ever built. He flew the Sky Baby. He watched the Baby Bird take his former record. And in the early 1980s, he built his own contender, the Bumble Bee I. It was a tiny biplane with a wingspan of 6 feet 6 inches and a length of 9 feet 4 inches, first flown in January 1984 at Marana Airport in Arizona. It earned the Guinness record briefly, but then the Baby Bird reclaimed the title by redefining categories. Starr could have walked away. He didn't. He went back to his workshop in Phoenix and started building something that would settle the argument for good. Number 1. The Star Bumble Bee II. This is the aircraft that Guinness still recognizes as the smallest crewed airplane ever flown by dimensions. The wingspan is 5 feet 6 inches. The total length is 8 feet 10 inches. Height is 3 feet 11 inches. It weighed 396 pounds empty and carried a maximum takeoff weight of 573 pounds, including pilot and fuel. The engine was a Continental piston unit producing around 85 horsepower. Cruise speed reportedly sat near 150 miles per hour, with a top speed pushing close to 190 miles per hour. On April 2nd, 1988, at Marana Air Park, just outside Tucson, Arizona, Robert Starr flew the Bumble Bee II and officially reclaimed the world record. Aerodynamic engineers said the design should not work. The aircraft was inherently unstable, twitchy, and unforgiving. It flew anyway, but the Bumble Bee II survived exactly 3 flights. On May 5th, 1988, during the downwind leg of a traffic pattern at about 400 feet, the engine failed. With almost no time to react and zero margin for error in an aircraft that small, the Bumble Bee II dropped from the sky and was completely destroyed on impact. Starr was pulled from the wreckage with severe injuries. He eventually made a full recovery, but the airframe was gone forever. The original Bumble Bee I still sits on display at the Pima Air and Space Museum in Tucson. Starr passed away in 2009, and the record he set that spring morning in Arizona still stands. So the smallest prop plane ever built had a wingspan shorter than most people are tall, flew 3 times, and then ceased to exist. And it was born from a rivalry between 2 men who spent decades trying to outshrink each other's airplanes. Which raises an honest question. When you're building aircraft this small, is it still about aviation? Or is it about proving something that nobody else was willing to try? Tell me in the comments whether you'd climb into a 5-foot wingspan airplane, and if engineering at the edge of reason is your kind of content. Hit subscribe, because next we're looking at aircraft that were never supposed to leave the ground.